So I'm Harold Wilson. I'm a student at Daytona State College, and today I will be interviewing, and you said your name, I see here is Krista. Miss Krista Amico, or Amico?
Amico.
Amico, I'm so sorry.
No worries.
And this is for the Career Research Project for SLS 1122, Dynamics of Student Success. Miss Amico has consented to the filming of this interview and also the release of footage to YouTube for the use of Dr. G. Iris Threet Milton, Associate Professor at Daytona State College. So Miss Amico, how did you decide on your career?
Well, for teaching, I didn't actually start out as a teacher or an interest in the teaching field. I was an acting major. And then once I graduated, a couple of teachers, past teachers, recommended teaching for me because here at Mainland High School there was an opening. And so I said, okay, why not? Because I had taught summer camp, and so I had taught acting in the past. And so because there was an opening for a theater position and also an English position, I was always very good in English in high school, it was recommended to me.
What preparation or coursework did you complete for this job?
To be a teacher, okay, so I did an interview, and once I got through the interview, they said that I needed to take a test that qualified me to teach English. Because I was an acting major, so theater, I was already ready to go with theater. I could already teach theater. But with English, that wasn't my major. I had to take a test.
You had to take that subject test.
Yes, I did. I took the subject test, and I passed it.
What advice would you give to beginning college students about things they could start doing now to help them prepare to enter your career field?
So, to be a teacher, okay, so I would say I would look into being a substitute teacher because you can do that, I believe, with just having a high school degree. I believe that's correct. But I would look into that because my brother is actually wanting to be a teacher. And so he's been asking me advice about this, which is kind of ironic. And he is now getting into substituting. It is not the same as teaching. So don't, as soon as you start subbing, don't freak out. Say, oh gosh, this is what it's like. Because it's not necessarily like that, but it's just to kind of get you to see what students are like in a classroom setting. You're given a lesson plan and you kind of have to follow that lesson plan. Sometimes it's going to be busy work, right? It's not going to be what you would do as a teacher, but it just gives you the setting, the environment in which you will be in every day if you become a teacher. Okay? It's not to scare you away from it, but it's just to kind of get a feel for it a little bit. And the other thing I would do is I would look into seeing if there's a possibility of shadowing a teacher. You can shadow someone in the field, even the subject that you're interested in teaching. So that way you see what they do on a day-to-day basis. And you really understand, because it's a lot more than just getting up here and teaching the students and then we're done. There's workshops, there's PLC meetings, there's a lot going on, and still I'm learning. I'm a first-year teacher and I'm still learning what I have to do.
This is your first year?
This is my very first year.
One of my main concerns when I changed my major to education was the fact, am I going to be in a school and am I going to actually be working with students, or am I just going to be in an office somewhere working on paperwork? Yeah. And I found out I will be working with students.
That's great. That's great, because that's the part that, for me, that was the, I guess, culture shock. I was like, oh gosh, because when I was in school, it was just a lot different. And even the classes I took as a student were different than the classes that I'm teaching.
Right.
Right. So, and I think that experience will definitely help you understand what you're getting yourself into.
What do you like most about your career? Drumming out of the window.
Drumming outside. What I like most is the effect that you have on students in helping them grow. And you'll see it. And when you see it, it's great. Because there are going to be moments that you're like, oh gosh, I'm not getting through to these kids, or there's something like missing, or they're so bored out of their mind, right?
Right.
Because they don't necessarily want to learn this material, but they have to. So
English especially, like, I'm going to be honest, even when I was in high school, I passed out in English.
I fell asleep during an English class too. Trust me.
So,
we're all human. But I think that's the key is there's a moment that they get it. And it's this light bulb moment. And that's really what drives you. You're like, yes, you got it, yes! Or when they turn in work that they haven't turned in, and now all of a sudden their F is now a B.
Yeah.
Those moments like
that would be a good feeling. I do understand that.
It's
During
great.
my fall A term, I actually took a reading class and a writing class, so it was just basically an English class. Mm-hmm. And I just fell in love with it. I hated my English classes before that. I just fell in love with these classes. And it was like you said, it's just like, okay, I got it. Mm-hmm. And my teachers were impressed because I went from having D's and F's in English in high school to having straight A's here.
That's great. That's really cool.
So,
yeah, and so when you have those moments, or when you've created a new idea, right, a new way to teach something, and then that's what gets some of these students. They're like, oh, I get it now, or you relate to them. You really
right.
make it important to them. That's key.
What is the biggest challenge you've encountered?
How do I say the biggest challenge? I would say for me, personally, it would be balancing work with my life. Because it is very easy as a teacher for your life to suddenly become teaching. Because you're constantly lesson planning or grading papers or trying to deal with certain issues that you find in your classroom. Oh, I've got to call this parent because their kid did this and I want to try to fix it in some way, and
right.
This kid's failing, I got to try and make sure that they do this work, so I got to prepare these packets, or I have to prepare what assignments they're missing. And so it's just, and then once you get home to not stressing out about what happened that day, okay, what are we doing tomorrow, what was successful today that I can
use for
tomorrow, but what was I not so successful with that I can improve on for tomorrow.
Right.
And so it's that part for me as a teacher, it's the balancing act, because there's also a lot of workshops that you have to go to that are required. And I'm in a class for ESOL, so English as a second language, because I've got some students who don't speak English in my classes that I have to teach as well, like on top of the fact that the entire class. So it's just balancing school with your life.
My
and just
drama instructor, I was very impressed with her, what she was doing, because she was a teacher at the high school. She was a professor at St. Petersburg College, and she has a comedy career that she and somehow she balances all of it. And I was always really impressed by that. And when I talked to her about it, she goes, the one day off I have a week, she goes, I'm sleeping all day.
Hibernation, and you become much better at multitasking. It's crazy, because also, even if you think about it during your lesson, and it's weird because now I think back on my lessons and what I've done, and there are moments where I'm teaching what I need to teach, and then I have a little basket over there, and I will see that people are on their phones, and you're not supposed to have phones out. Right? So here I am in the middle of talking about whatever is on the board, and then I just pick up my basket. I'm still talking about what's going on the board, but I'm also pointing to you and putting yourself on there. Thank you very much. And I'm still continuing on with my lesson. And it's crazy how much of that is throughout the entire day.
Does your career have a big impact, either positive or negative, on your personal life?
Yes, it does. Okay, if you do not balance this, you'll go crazy. Okay, and that is my biggest. Because that's my biggest thing that I am working on. It's funny that you're interviewing me, because as a first year teacher, this is you got to make it through that first year, and you will always hear that as a first year teacher, is that first year is the hardest year ever. And it's funny because the teacher's like, oh, we've all had first years, oh, just get through this first year, and they will constantly say things like that, because it's true.
Because you're trying not to make students run over you.
Well,
basically.
exactly. You are establishing yourself as a teacher, and you're just trying to survive. Survive all the paperwork, survive the workshops, and survive.
I'm sure
just
when you
here.
start working at a school, they explain to you the rules and how things are ran and what you do. I mean, I know this is what the students think, but I mean, it's also obvious that they're not just going to let you, oh, you're hired, can you start tomorrow? It's not like, oh, we're just going to throw you in front of a blackboard and in front of a class. Well,
here's the thing. You will be trained. Okay, you will. That will happen.
as in any job.
But the best kind of training is in practice. Okay, does that make sense? Because to learn how to teach is relevant to like what you are going to be a much different teacher than maybe I will be. Ms. Ferrari, who's right there, is a much different teacher than I am. Mrs. Thompson is a much different teacher. They're all very different on how they teach. Okay, for me, I'm very expressive. It comes with theater, right? And so I'm very enthusiastic when I teach things, right?
Right.
And I like to do a lot of hands-on activities. That might not work for you. For you, you might be a lot more logical or creating different assignments that aren't maybe as hands-on, but just as effective with those students.
Right.
Right? So to teach that is very difficult on paper and much easier to teach in practice. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so the best type of training is getting you into a classroom and getting you started. Right?
Right.
So you will be trained, of course. They're not just going to plop you in with no help. And it depends on what school you're in, but we have what's called a PLC meeting. We have them twice a week. And we meet with everybody within our department in our grade level. So I'm
And this is just within the school.
This is the school. So there's other schools will do it too, but they might do it at different times. Ours is just twice a week on certain days. For us, it's on Monday and Tuesday. So I had a PLC meeting today. We meet together and we talk about what we're doing and what we're planning for the rest of the week. So they'll help you with your lesson plans, with any behavior issues that you're having, anything. Hey, I was struggling when I was teaching Irene. What did you do in your classes? Because they seem to really understand it. What did you do? And they'll like go back and forth. They'll trade lesson plans. They'll trade different assignments. Oh, this is good.
That's a good idea.
It's really cool.
Yeah, that's a very good idea because
it saved me a lot in a lot of ways.
Yeah, especially as a first-year teacher. I mean, yeah, that would help a lot.
Absolutely, because you're like, I don't know what's going on, or they'll, those teachers that have been here before will be like, hey, don't forget, we've got a meeting today.
Right.
Like there's constant reminders. There's some emails galore, more emails than you'll need to ever have in your life, and so you're always reminded of what's going on. And whenever you're having like an issue like that, you reach out to those people who have been teachers forever because they have the answers, because they have the
How do you spend a typical day at work?
Okay. Like, you want me to run you through a schedule, or?
Just briefly.
Briefly, okay. I try my very best to get here early. I'm one of those weirdo teachers that get here like 30 minutes before the bell, so that way I set up everything before the class period starts. Any sort of paperwork I need to turn in to the secretary or any of those people, I make sure to do it immediately because I'm very forgetful. I am like the Dory fish from Finding Nemo, no joke. I'm like, what? I don't understand. What did I do? So I go sign in, I turn in any paperwork, and then I ask, is there anything I'm missing? And they say no or yes. And then I get whatever I need to do for the rest of the day. I come in, I set up for class. For me, it's first period, second period, and then it's that PLC meeting or lab. And what lab is for this school is students come in if they need extra help, or if we feel that they need extra help, or if they need to make up an assignment, anything like that, we call them into what's called lab, and they make up that work or get help from us.
So it's basically like a study hall period.
And students can get called to any class that they feel they need help with.
Okay.
After that, I then have third period. So I got 3 English classes, first, second, and third. And then fourth period is my planning period. So it's when I turn in any paperwork that I had to do that day, field trip forms, whatever it is, and also grading papers. Then it's lunch. Usually for lunch, for me, I usually have meetings because I run Drama Club and the GSA program. And so at any given time, we've either got a meeting or there's rehearsal or it's playtime, let's hang out.
Right.
Just different types of gatherings. So there's always students in my classroom, always. So that fourth period is really the only break for me all day. And then after lunch, I have theater for fifth period, sixth period, and then a musical theater class, seventh period. And it depends on the day what we do. Sometimes I try to keep the history PowerPoints pretty short, about 2 or 3 days worth of PowerPoints for history, for theater, and then reading the script, analyzing the script, and then doing different assignments with the script. And so usually it will take about a month and a half, depending on those, like, on topics. Okay, so that way, in case students were absent, you can catch those people up, and so it's not like too many people are lagging behind, especially when they have to do scene work, and they'll need ample amount of time to make sure that they memorized it, if costumed it, everything. Because if one student's absent for a week,
it really drags it down.
It does.
Yeah.
So, and then after school, we normally have rehearsal. And if I don't have rehearsal, I have a workshop. That's basically
Great.
it.
What personal skills or qualities do you see as being essential for success in your career?
Organization. Being organized. That's my biggest struggle. I am a creative, organized person, so it's like
But yeah, I mean, I've had teachers that do that too with the bell ringing around, because otherwise you're not going to get them to quiet down any other way. So
And it depends. Sometimes what we'll do is at a period where I do is sometimes I will put on a video, like some sort of thing that's related to musical theater, and they have to watch it, and they have to say what they think this character's objective is, or what they think the character's tactics are, in which, you know, to get what they want. So like, things like that. So they have to watch it, and they have to like, oh, I gotta watch this. Okay, this is what I see. Or what type of acting techniques did you see during this? And then play it. And like, or sometimes even just a funny video that I think will just grab their attention, and it's related to what we're gonna go into next.
Right.
You know, things like that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. How does someone advance in your career?
I don't know. Let's see.
I knew that one was going to be a hard one, because even I looked at that one and I'm like...
I don't know what that means exactly.
I'm like, you can't really get promoted too much.
Well, okay, so...
I mean, you can, but...
Maybe, I guess, what I'm learning. So I am the drama teacher, right, as well as English. And so I guess an example of that might be... maybe I just want to be a drama teacher, right? How do I do that? I guess I have to impress them with my shows and create a program that is successful and is in high demand, right? So if the class is suddenly in high demand, they might eventually need a full-time drama teacher, right? And then I will no longer teach English, I will teach drama the entire day. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But you have to create and build a successful program in order for that to happen. If you don't, there's not going to be a demand for it. Or even getting the school to trust you, so that you can take the students out on more field trips, or helping with, not necessarily the curriculum, because that's kind of set in stone, but how to teach the students in a different way, right? You can try different things. You can go anywhere. You can go outside if you wanted to teach. Teach right outside in the little what is that called? I'm thinking of it's called just right outside, like right outside the cafeteria. Okay, in the amphitheater. That's what it's called. In the amphitheater, you could do that. One of the things that for me, I took the kids to the Athens Theater over in DeLand, and they were like, whoa, you're a new teacher. And I'm like, whoa, they need to know what theater is. And so I think the best way to show them, to teach them what it is actually showing them. And so they approved a field trip one. I know some schools that might have not been a possibility until I proved myself as a teacher.
Right. Are there any moral or ethical challenges that tend to arise in your career?
Yes. Students will open up and tell you their entire life, and that's sometimes very challenging as a person, because there are things that are going on in their life that you will view as not okay, right? Like morally for you, right? If their parents behave in a certain manner, or don't treat them right, or if the other students are either making fun of another student or physically hurting them, things like that. And so you have to immediately report anything and everything.
Right.
Right. Like I've had some sensitive subjects and stuff brought up into class as well. Students will ask you what your religion is. They will ask you whatever
Stuff
it is.
You can't disclose.
You can't talk about it. You cannot talk about it. And that part is hard, because you have to say, I can't talk about this. Oh, but I just want to know. I cannot talk about this. But this is not the topic.
What did I just say?
We're not allowed to talk about this. Let's focus on irony. You know what I mean? And it's just funny, because they will get off topic really quickly, because they want to know more about you. They do. They really do, because they want
to connect with you more.
Exactly. They want to relate to you. Because honestly, for some students, you might be the only positive influence that's an adult in their life. And that's the sad truth. You know, not that, you know, all parents are bad or anything like that, but
There are those few.
there are some students that maybe don't even have parents, you know, and that's the part that's really difficult to hold. Like, that's the burden as a teacher.
Yeah.
You know, as you find out that, hey, this student is actually homeless. What do you do with that? You know what I mean? Or,
Yeah.
you know, students want to talk to you about religion. Well, I can't really talk to you about that, but I can, but I can't. And so, like, that might be
It's like you
a
can, but
struggle.
you can't put your opinion in on it.
Exactly. And there are some topics within like history or even theater that deal with religion, and it is
A lot of religion.
a balancing acting in Greek theater. We talk about gods and goddesses and things like that. And people are asking religious questions about that are hard to answer. It's difficult. And right now we're working on medieval theater, which is morality plays, and so then that deals with religion as well. And so it's very hard to walk that tightrope. You don't want to say anything that's going to offend anybody.
Right.
It's going to get you a scary email from parents or phone calls or anything like that. You don't want to offend anybody. And so that part, for me, morally is kind of hard. And there are snippets of, even for theater, of history, that we have to be careful when we talk about. Because we don't want to give our opinion, right? Because we can't be political. We can't be religious. We can't be any of those things. We have to be like neutral.
Yeah.
Okay? And that, for some people, might be difficult morally or ethically. Like, that might be hard for people. And the bullying or anything like that, that for me is very difficult as well.
Yeah.
And it's hard
Especially
to know
especially as a first year teacher, you don't know. You don't know how to handle that type of situation.
Right. And the other thing is that's kind of hard is especially with the increasing amount of bullying, and then the seriousness of what that could possibly lead up to for some students because they are depressed or anything like that. That it's really sensitive topics, and so you immediately approach the counselor. And I've already done that. You have to report it. You have to, and because it can be very serious. You don't want anything bad to happen to your students, so you have to.
Right.
And that's the thing that might be tricky morally for some teachers as well, is because the student trusts you, but you have to tell that student, listen, whatever you tell me, I think that it is bad, or you're like it is hurting you or hurting somebody else, I have to report it. So that way you don't, they don't stop trusting you and stop telling you things, because if you just do it and you tell on them, they might not tell you anything ever again. And you might be the only person that they tell anything serious like that.
Right.
So that's one of those big things as a teacher.
So then when you say that to them, it just makes them think again, do I really want to say this out loud?
And most of them will, because they trust you and they care about you. You know, I've had some students already, Miss Amico, what would I was happening? And I'm like, whoa, okay, well, I'd report that. They're like, but even if, I'm like, yes. Because you don't know where the information is coming from and the seriousness of it. You always have to treat it to the nth degree of seriousness. Because you don't want anything bad to happen.
Right.
So, and it's your obligation as by law, what you are supposed to do as a teacher.
Right. Last question here. If you had to do it over again, would you choose the same career?
I don't know yet. They say, as in like the group of teachers that are the experienced teachers, that you're not going to know if it's the field for you until like a couple of years in. And I know that sounds kind of, wow, that's a long time to figure it out. Trust me, I'm thinking the same thing. But this first year is not a very accurate, it's not very accurate of how the rest of your teaching career will go. Okay? Everything is new. Everything. I don't know anything. I've never taught before.
Right.
Right? So everything that is coming at me is for the first time, and it is usually because I'm new.
Right.
Right? So a lot of my struggles that I have as a teacher, that's why. So it's usually going to take you maybe 1 to 2 years to probably figure out, is this what I want to do? So in a year, I'll tell you.
Okay. Okay.
So that first year is the struggle year. That's going to be the hardest year. So you just got to make it through that first year. And once you've done it, you'll be like, yes, I did it. I could do that again. And it'll even be better, right?
Right.
Because you've already done it one time through. And as it gets better,
And every year it's just going to get better and better and
it's
better.
going to get easier and easier. And then because it's easier, it will become more fun. You'll be able to be more creative with it. Because you'll have the time to be more creative. So,
Right. Yeah, it's, from what I've seen of it and what I have done, because when I volunteered at my old high school, that's what I was doing. I was standing in front of kids and explaining to them, oh, here's our lighting board here, here's what it does, and here's how you do it. And then you get over to the soundboard and it's all these buttons and knobs, and you get the freshmen up there and they're just like, what does this button do? And then that's the whole thing out. And then I have to get in there and re-equalize the whole thing.
yeah.
Which is always fun. And, but you know, you do what you gotta do, and if it's what you love to do, then you don't mind.
I like it a lot. There are some days that I'm like, my life, this is so hard, but that's normal. And so you know that first year when you start teaching, you're like, oh man, I remember when I interviewed Miss Amico, and she's like, there's going to be days where I'm like, oh God. There are. It's natural. And it's usually because you care, which is always a good thing. You know what I mean? Like, because that's what these students need. They need people who care about them.
Right.
You know? And so those days that you struggle, you really got to hold on to those little nuggets of hope and happiness and those little light bulb moments, you know, or when a student was like, that was a really cool lesson, or when they are starting to do well in something. You need to grab hold of that and remember that on those really rough days, because there's going to be rough days. There's gonna be days where you question everything. Is this what I want to do with my life?
Right.
You know, things like that. And the students will get you. You know,
I'm sure they will.
There'll be a moment where you're like, oh, this is why I do this. Oh yeah, that's right. I remember now. Right, because you see the great impact that you have on them. There's a lot of, you know, things to get through to get to those moments, but you'll get there, and when you do, it's really rewarding.
For me, for some people, I get, of course, the typical criticism. Oh, you really want to do this? You want to do this? Blah 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 blah. And then you get the other people that are like, yeah, I see you doing that.
Yeah.
I can actually see you in that field. And I'm like, that's what I love to do. I love to be with students and helping students and teaching students and figuring out other ways for these students to retain the information that we've been taught. So, I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Why not doing it?
Why not? Give it a shot. What is the worst thing that can happen? You'll learn something, and then maybe it's not what you want to do. So, I will say, despite what happens out of this, if I do this for, you know, another 2 years, or if I do it for 5 years, or I do it until I retire, you know, I will say that I have learned so much, an extraordinary amount, just as a teacher. And it's funny and it's ironic, because the students are supposed to learn. I've learned. I have learned so much about organizing, responsibility, taking care of people, multitasking, because there are students, and they all want to talk to you. Quiet, thank you. Like, and taking control over a room, public speaking.
Yeah, that's one
amazing.
class I have to take, not next semester, but probably the fall semester the following year, is I have to take diversity in education and public speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm taking my intro to the teaching profession over the summer.
Okay.